Hey, do you want to come over and make a pot of tea, bring your favorite crystals? We could talk about our birth charts, spirits, the latest house spells we've been doing. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm that witch next door. Well, hello, my wonderful neighbor. Welcome to another episode of That Witch Podcast. This is a pretty important and albeit hopefully helpful one as well to many of you. I'm Danny. I'm that witch next door. If this is your first time here, I am all about real magic for real life. The type of content that you're going to find here at That Witch Podcast is how to use witchcraft and astrology and tarot and modern spirituality to actually help you live a better, more fulfilled, healthy, meaningful life. And that, my friends, is something that especially anyone who is identified as a witch or an astrologer or a tarot reader or a healer or a Reiki practitioner or a crystal healer or, so many things. A medicine witch, a bruja. There are so many of us that, regardless of our practice and how we actually live it, we all can agree that there is this huge, massive stigma around everything that we do. And this stigma is born from and carried on strictly by people that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And I don't mean that in any way as a judgmental insult. I mean that in a very factual, like these are people that have clearly never done the research in or dove deep into any of these practices or areas of study or labels or belief systems. This is a huge umbrella that encompasses so many of us within it. But one of the main things that we can relate to with each other is, in layman's terms, like dealing with muggles or regular folk, if you will, that just don't get it. And, a variety of things spring from that. From, just someone in your life that just doesn't get it, all the way to the people that are fundamentally and firmly against it and believe that it's all pure evil no matter what, or that it's all, or it, kind of as equally insulting, that it's all a scam, that it's all a scam. Every single one of us, we're scam artists. Even the ones who don't make any money doing it, you're scam artists. Just obviously kidding. Okay. Hopefully we can be a little silly and sarcastic here today, so that we can be real and straight up and honest. Because the truth is that you have to use discernment first and foremost. This episode in general was requested multiple times by multiple neighbors, and is something that I've had on my docket and I've wanted to do for a really long time. And finally put it into the episode schedule. And it's something that so many people struggle with, whether they're just wanting a place to talk about it or they are looking for actual resources and tools that they can use to, handle this or deal with it in their spiritual lives. Well, the first step, if you will, is we have to be able to use discernment, because, like I said, there's this huge difference between somebody in your life who really genuinely does love you, wants the best for you, wants you to be happy, wants you to be safe, secure, all of those things, right? But also flat out doesn't get this. or somebody who fits all that criteria I just listed and is afraid of it or thinks that it's really evil. This is a very common situation, and it's something that the first thing that I want to do is offer some solidarity to everybody. Like, you are so not alone in that experience at all. That's why I started out by like really painting a picture of just how massive this umbrella is and how many of us fall under it and have had this experience. So whether it is your astrology, your tarot, your crystals, your spell work, your numerology, your astral travel, your meditation, your multi-deity, or your pagan thing, or a combination of any of these things, or maybe anything that I didn't list here, there are people in your life that just flat out don't get it, but you also love them and you also respect them. How do you go about this? How do you cope? How do you deal with the people that you don't necessarily love or respect, like the strangers that you have to deal with that are like this, for example, like on the internet or whatever? First of all, I have firsthand experience in all of this. I am friends with and in community with so many people who have also experienced this. I've personally helped and assisted and supported many practitioners through this as a mentor and a reader. And honestly, probably literally every single person listening to this episode right now has a situation or a scenario that at least somewhat or somehow falls into this subject of this episode. This is for you. This is for you, my friend. We have two purposes in this episode. One, to let you know that you're not alone, that this is normal, that you're valid, that there is support out there, and that it's growing. And number two, I want to give you some tools that you can use in a few common scenarios. We're going to go through like the main types of people and connections and interactions in your life where you might be subjected to this. And we'll go through some like, tools and resources and like helpful mindset tips and stuff to keep, to take with you into different situations so that you can protect your own sanctity and serenity that you beyond deserve and reserve the right to, my friend. So, first things first. Number one, if you're on YouTube and watching the video, I have to tell you that, or if you're on social media and watch any of the promo clips from this episode, it is well past Halloween and I am still in my Halloween garb, and my house is decorated in full-fledged Christmas. So that's where we're at around here. just to give you a little peek into that witch next door's house life, if you will. But yeah, if you're watching YouTube, I'm wearing like a giant pumpkin sweatshirt today. And really, I didn't even do it for Halloween purposes, though I am 100% that person that celebrates Halloween all year round. It's actually because this is my favorite sweatshirt in the world, and I absolutely love how it feels and fits. And it was a total sensory pick today, but I had to disclaimer that this is not an old episode. It's well after Halloween, and I'm rocking it. I don't give a shit. I'm rocking it. And while we're at it, make sure you're going over to YouTube and subscribing over there, by the way. On our regular episodes, I film so that we can connect with each other face to face. So if you're one of my neighbors that feels like these episodes feel like we're hanging out, it really, really adds to that feeling when you can watch on YouTube. So make sure you go over to YouTube, share with your friends, hit subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. So I had to disclaimer that. Now, some first things first. We've got to keep in mind here. Some people come from families that are pagan or spiritual or witchy or have some sort of background in witchcraft or magic or energy work. And then you have some people in the spiritual community that did not come from any of that and are on a total and complete DIY path. They've had to do all their own learning, all their own research, seek out mentors, seek out education. They were not brought up this way. And then you have all of us, kind of interacting with each other in the same spheres when we all get together. So you have to keep in mind that, there are some people that naturally don't get hung up on like what other people think about them or what other people say, or they were brought up and they were prepared for this, by previous generations that were able to say, pass down this information and these practices, and also prepare the younger generations, for the stigma that they will inevitably face. And then you have those of us that were not raised, not prepared for any of this, entering into this sphere, not being prepared at all for what that's going to be like, to deal with the stigma around it. And no matter where you are on any of this spectrum, it is still your own unique challenge that you have as a tarot reader, a dream worker, a meditation specialist, a Reiki practitioner, a witch, a medium, a healer, a psychic. Like, if you fall under an astrologer, if you fall under any of those categories or labels or a combination of them, you will inevitably, or already very likely have inevitably, had to deal with the stigma. And just know that there are places where witchcraft and magic and energy work, where, like, geographic places, I mean, like physical places on this earth, where it's celebrated, honored, welcomed. And then there are communities, physical places on this earth where practicing witchcraft, magic, any of the above, is looked down upon, demonized, or even illegal. Like, so the reason that I paint this full picture is because the way that you deal with people either questioning your practice or, we'll go through some of the scenarios. All of these things matter because all of these different factors we're talking about, they impact your mindset. And your mindset really, really matters when dealing with the stigma. I do also, let me write that down too. I do also want to shout out our witch wound episode. That would be a really, really good episode to go back and listen to if you have already. And if you haven't listened to my witch wound episode, definitely go back and listen to it. Also, search and listen to other witches and healers and mystics educate you about the witch wound too. Do not let me be your end all be all source. It's such an important topic. If you're going to be in any part of this industry, even if you don't call yourself a witch, if you're in any corner of this community or industry, in modern mysticism, research and get to know the witch wound, your witch wound, learn to recognize it. That would be very, very helpful with everything. Just that provides a very helpful foundation for everything that we're talking about today. You could even pause this episode and go back and listen to that one first if you really, really wanted. But these things that we're talking about, like where people come from, how they approach the stigma, how they already feel about it, where they physically live, all of these things impact how a person needs to discern any individual interaction that you have. You have to be able to use centered, grounded judgment and discernment with the various people that you encounter and the conversations that you have around this, or the interactions that you have around this part of your life. Because if it is a very sacred part of your life, which I'm guessing it is if you're listening to this podcast right now, it deserves to be honored and protected and the appropriate boundaries upheld around it. But those boundaries are going to look different person to person, interaction to interaction, and based on different kinds of factors. So you want to take all these different things just into consideration. Now, I will say this. We might, myself included, we might find ourselves getting frustrated from time to time or very frequently with, of course, like the inevitably negative consequences that we've seen of the rapidly rising like astrology and witchcraft trends around society over the last, I don't know, like 10 years. However, there are also positive consequences that have come from the rising trends in witchcraft and astrology and modern mysticism and spirituality over these last several years, like the fact that there is way more information becoming way more widely available, plus growing support and resources for witches, tarot readers, healers, astrologers, etc., like there never ever has been before. So if you do nothing else, I advise on this episode, but one thing, let it be this: seek these resources out and utilize them. Get to know the person who's providing them. Like we talked about on, this week's earlier Moonday Musings episode, like you're the host of any community and space and public platform that is offering any types of like services and support resources for those of us in the industry, like what I do for a living as well. That person should be very like clear about their ethics and their values and the type of space that they hold and what they do in certain situations. And you need to have those little like feelers out and trust who you align with, who you don't. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to go away for seasons. It's okay to come back for seasons. Like they're a truly, truly ethical, like upstanding professional in this industry that offers any of the like support or resources that are meant to help and not take advantage of or scam tarot readers and witches. And they are going to be fine seeing you come into their community if you align with their values, and they are going to be fine seeing you leave their community if you don't align. Nobody should be trying to manipulate you to stay or saying the things that you just want to hear to get you to say. Anyone who's offering spiritual resources of any kind should be trusting of whom they are working with just as much as they are trusting of whom does not want to work with them. So I want you to seek out these communities, because I think the reason I preface and even say all of that is because I think that a lot of people hold back testing out different communities. And when I say testing them out, I mean really putting themselves out there, connecting with people, interacting with people, consuming their content and connecting with them. I think that a lot of people hold back because they're afraid of getting burned, or, they're afraid of the risk. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and utilize these resources, and not just absorb what you like, but pay attention to what you don't like, because it's only going to strengthen your spiritual practice on your unique path. So seek these resources out, consume them, give a shit about who's providing them and if you align with them or not. Base that on your own moral and ethical code. And like, honestly, remember, when you take that risk that I know feels scary sometimes, but when you take that risk of putting yourself out there and opening yourself up for connection, real connection with others, and really giving yourself a shot at building your own community, because it's so important. It's so important. That's why I said this is the most important thing to take away from this episode. The community that you built is what is going to bring you the greatest gifts on this path, because the support that you receive from your community is priceless. Priceless. So even though it can be scary to put yourself out there, remember that when you do face that challenge and you do put yourself out there and you do start to make connections and you do start to build community, you can rest assured that, first of all, there is strength in numbers, as far as like, there's like protection in having people have your back. But also, as equally as important as that benefit, there is solidarity to be found and experienced, and there is validation to be found and experienced when we have numbers, when we have community, when we have support around us. Do not underestimate the value of feeling supported and validated and stood with in solidarity. So when it comes to facing the naysayers out there, when it comes to facing and dealing with and handling the stigma, if this is the biggest piece of advice I can give you, it's build a supportive community for yourself. That can look like joining communities, various ones. It can look like the people that follow you. The way that I define community is like, obviously I have like my business community, like that witch next door's community, our neighborhood, right? But when I'm talking about me, Danny, like my community, it encompasses that, all of that witches community, plus my unique community that I have personally built. That is important for each one of us. It is by far the best weapon, I guess I could say, that you can have in dealing with facing the witch wound, the stigma, and facing and dealing with the people that want to totally invalidate our practice and our lifestyle and our beliefs. Have people, build an army. All right, so let's start to talk about some tools and some examples of resources, like what some of these resources can look like. So you want to remember that the first step in dealing with any kind of naysayer, anybody that's trying to say, what you do is evil or is bullshit or is nonsense or whatever. The first step is mindset work and your own personal boundaries, okay? First, number one, repeat after me. I do not carry the burden of proof of the existence of magic, astrology, source, energy work, etc. Okay? None of us carry some burden of proof. So anytime you encounter a person that tries to test you, you are not obligated to that in any way. I need you to know that. You do not carry with you a burden of proof. Your practice and your beliefs are what they are for your own reasons, and they are valid, my friend. Your relationship to the divine, that is entirely yours. You get to express as much or as little of that to others as best fits you. And it is also not your job to educate anyone on our practices and our beliefs and why we do them. Because as with literally anything on this earth, everyone is required to do their own research and educate themselves. No one in this world is obligated to educate you. And then you start getting into maybe as kids, I would say, parents, I would say, are some of there are certain people that are technically obligated to teach. But that's my Gemini Mars getting hung up on a minor insignificant detail in the weeds. It is not your job to educate anyone on anything about any part of your life. If they want to know more about it, they can learn about it and research and educate themselves. If it's a person that you would enjoy educating and sharing those like things with, by all means. But I think a lot of practitioners feel this like self-imposed obligation, honestly, like, because I'm a witch, I must have to like be able to explain where magic comes from, how it exists, why it exists, and exactly how it works. And guess what? I don't know. I have my theories and my intuitive understanding like anybody else, but nobody knows. That's like anybody in this world that tries to tell you they know exactly what happens after we die. A lot of people will tell you that. A lot of people will tell you they know exactly what happens after we die. And we don't. No, we don't. And really, the burden of proof lies on no one at all. We just kind of like accept that burden, or we put that burden on people. And I just want you to know that you can release that. You do not carry that burden around. And anyone that wants to know any more about something can learn more about it on their own. Number 2, when it comes to mindset work and personal boundaries, assess, this is so important for safety, literal safety. Assess the community, the area, and the environment in which you live and work and travel. Because safety is your number one priority, first. And then security is your next priority. Act, show, or even conceal the parts of your practices or identity or beliefs accordingly. I am never going to be one that's like, you need to like hide who you are so that people approve of you or like you. Absolutely not. The reality, though, that we can be in physical geographic locations where it's literally unsafe to call yourself a witch or talk about the professional work that you do in the spiritual industry, I want to remind you that your top priority is your physical safety. And it's okay to keep parts of your practice or identity hidden or concealed or private to protect your fucking safety and your security. And I really, really implore the like very overly like what's the word I'm thinking of? Obliviously privileged, which is that kind of blindly spew information that like you're not a real witch unless you are loud and proud about it. Your spells don't work unless you say them out loud at the top of your lungs. Like, these are pieces of advice and education that should not and cannot apply to certain people so that they are physically safe where they live, or the community or the environment that they're physically in. So just know that if you, in whatever situation you're in, if you have to like conceal parts of what you do or even lie about who you are and like what you believe in so that you can stay safe and maintain security, please know that that does not invalidate you as a witch in literally any way, shape, or form. All right, number 3, you are not responsible for or obligated to defend or explain or define other people's witchcraft practice or your own witchcraft practice. And what I'm specifically referring to is when you encounter situations where people will say, well, what about X, Y, and Z? What about this experience I heard about with the tarot cards one time? What about this story I heard about a Ouija board? What about this story that I heard about a group of witches and what they did? You are not obligated to defend any of that or explain it or define any of that. You are not involved in any of that. And last I checked, unless your practice is directly harming anybody, you owe nothing to anybody. Nothing. Not a peep, my friend. And speaking of which, number 4, one of my personal favorites, you do not owe your spiritual gifts to anyone. Especially, honestly, especially to those who don't get it or don't respect it. I am talking about, and again, the seasoned witches, I hope, are clapping at these ones, because if you have been in this industry or in this community and world long enough, you have experienced somebody who doesn't get it or who has always been disrespectful of it, and then will like demand or request your spiritual gifts in some way, shape, or form. Oh, well, okay, tell me what this full moon means for me then. Then explain to me why hey, is there something weird going on in the sky? That's a really common one that I get from randos who normally are like very put off by astrology or have this blatant like, yeah, that stuff, and don't really, but then they have a weird week or some weird things happen or whatever. And then they come, and again, I'm not talking about people that do this in a respectful way. I'm specifically talking about anybody who is disrespectful about that. You have every right to turn anybody away. You do not owe your spiritual gifts to anybody. Strangers that might flock to you and all of a sudden start like telling you this recurring nightmare that they've had their entire life in extreme graphic detail. And yes, I am speaking from multiple personal experiences. That's what you get when you have a fucking Pisces moon in the 8th house, I guess. Is people dream trauma dumping. Strangers specifically. You do not owe anybody like a dream interpretation or an on-the-spot tarot reading or an energy reading or a medium reading. Like that is something that is so incredibly common, and it connects directly to what we talked about. You do not carry some burden of proof. And also you do not carry this burden of like some fake contract with the universe that you have to like give your energy to every single person that comes up and asks for it. If anything, I sure hope the universe has been showing you that we need different types of boundaries in different types of places. When you're feeling called in the moment and somebody asks, share those gifts. Don't hold your gifts back because you are doubting yourself, or, I am going to be your biggest cheerleader when it comes to sharing your beautiful spiritual gifts to the world, especially if you're only holding back because you're feeling insecure or scared. But I'm going to be right there. I've got your fucking back. If anyone is trying to demand that you like explain like a shitty tarot reading they had 30 years ago. Again, I hope you can tell I'm speaking from like many personal experiences of the shit that's come across my plate. And many of these were long before I had a public platform where I opened myself up to even more people. Also, I want you to remember this. This is so important. Number 5, please remember. It is not a requirement to understand something in order to respect it. So do not accept somebody's, well, I don't understand it or I don't get it as some valid excuse for disrespecting you, ever. And on the flip side of that, learn to recognize the people in your life that don't get it, that don't understand, but love you, but treat you with respect. That is so important. That is so important, that discernment. And finally, number 6, closed-minded people are going to be closed-minded. And you know what? It is not your job, and usually it's impossible anyways, to like make anyone broaden their perspective. Most humans broaden their perspective or change it when they're following by example or through their own learning experience. We rarely have some epiphany while someone's explaining something to us. So if you're in an argument or dealing with a really closed-minded person, it's okay to just say to yourself, or straight to their face, I don't fucking care, you're not going to open your mind. I am who I am. It doesn't impact you in any way, shape, or form. I'm not fucking harming anybody. I'm not participating in this conversation or this interaction, okay? So let's look at some common scenarios where we will be needing to keep all of this wonderful context that we've been taking into consideration in mind. So people like roommates. I wanted to put roommates and coworkers at the beginning because they're some of our most common interactions and relationships that we can have with muggles or normies or people, non-magical folk, whatever you would like to call it, however you'd like to refer to it. Remember that remember all of these things that we've listed, that you're not responsible. You don't owe your gifts to anyone. You don't carry some burden of proof. You don't have to change anyone or open anyone's mind. And I want to remind you that, especially with people that fall into the category of like acquaintances, kind of like that some roommates and coworkers can be in, like, it's okay to maintain really surface level relationships with these people. Make sure you're taking into consideration like the safetyness factor. Be intentional about what you share, what you express, what you put on display. And definitely be good about your protection work that you do for your own personal energy and your own personal space, especially around your magical and spiritual tools. Whether it's like crystals that you bring to work or just your own body that you bring to work, or again, what you do in your home if you have roommates that are non-magical or whatever. Like, take all of these different factors into consideration and create or put up the appropriate protection wards for yourself. And sometimes that looks like keeping things physically hidden. Sometimes it looks like just keeping things in your room only. Or maybe there's something that goes in a drawer. Like, there were, the last time I worked at an office, like a desk job while I was a witch, before I had was an entrepreneur, I had like little witchy things at my desk, and I would bring crystals and stuff, but I also made a point not to identify as a witch at that point, partially because I was very new, I was still learning, and it was an environment where the truth is that people used personal information about other people to cause and start drama. And so to not participate in that, I kept my personal information out of it. You know what I mean? So use your discernment in acquaintances and things like that. And that's situations like that are like where really, remember your safety and security priority. Take your location into consideration, and act accordingly. If you are a person that lives in a place or works in a place where you really are just like, you struggle a lot, that you are the only spiritual, like of your type of spiritual person, you feel really misunderstood or really uncomfortable like expressing that part of yourself, remember to do your self energy orbs. Do your ground, cleanse, protect before and after like your work shifts, before and after you enter your room or your, you know what I mean? If you have to share space, there's so many different types of roommate situations. God, we could go on for hours about different types of living situations. So discernment, and energy boundaries. Now, family and friends. Family, we'll go with family first. you need to do a little bit of self-inventory on the people you consider family. Like, sometimes there are people in your blood family that you don't consider part of your family for whatever reason that you have. There are also people that are not of blood that we very much consider part of our family. So you need to kind of like have those definitions for yourself, and then also recognize types of family members, and look and be honest with yourself that certain types of family members, there are certain relationships where like it's okay that that person doesn't fully get me. And maybe I wish I could share more about this part of myself or this part of my life with that person, but I can also tell that that person is still doing the best with what they've got, with where they're at, with their own perspective. And if for the best way for us to have like a healthy relationship is that I just don't share this part of my life with them, like that's okay. I can do the work around that. There are levels of family that's okay. And then there are levels of family members that some of us are going to, and we're going to really get into this when we talk about spouses and partners, especially. There comes a certain level, and it's a little bit different for everybody, how much you can handle a person, an important loved one in your life, not fully understanding this part of you. And it's okay. And I just want you to know I've witnessed and have many friends and connections and people that I love that are witches or mystics that have lost people relationship wise because it was a level of that family member was a level that if you're not going to accept this part of me, if you're not going to at least try to get to know part of it, to get to a place of some sort of acceptance or respect around it, then we don't have a relationship with each other. That is a valid experience. And I just want you to know that you're not alone in that. But when it comes to family and like how you handle that, it really depends so much on who the family member is, how close you are with them. Once again, don't be afraid to be unapologetically you, but also don't feel invalidated if you keep parts of yourself private around certain people or in certain events or in certain settings simply for your own personal inner serenity. Okay. Now, friends. Friends are one where I feel like it's a little bit easier because usually we choose these people or we choose each other. Like friends very often choose each other, right? Very naturally, almost beyond words explanation, the way that friendships form. They're people that we have things in common with, but our energy is also in common with them. Our back and forth just hits right, and it makes it a really enjoyable person to spend time with. This is where friends is a little bit different because it's all around choice. Like this connection formed and happened. It's not like family, co-workers, roommates, where we're kind of put into this situation as much. There's way more like voluntarism around friendships. So they're a little bit easier to navigate, I find. And one piece of advice I'll give you, because I've already given you plenty of like, use discernment, what's respect and what's not respect. And that goes for your friends too. But the other thing I want to say is give people the benefit of the doubt, because more often than not, especially people like that fall under the category of friends, people will more often than not surprise you. Not always. I'll be the first to admit that. But people will more often than not surprise you or come around or open up in their own time and end up like getting to that acceptance place. And friends are one of the like most common areas we see that as witches. It's also why it is, of course, so important to like really form friendships in the spiritual and witchy and magical mystic community. But don't automatically assume that your muggle friends won't get it or will ostracize you. There were a lot of friends I kept it from, I remember, for a long time. And it's really funny looking back now. Because the majority of them, we did not like stop being friends because of it. Big time. All right. Now, the big one, spouses and partners. So this is probably the most common scenario that gets brought to my doorstep here next door. The spouses and partners one. My husband doesn't get it. My boyfriend doesn't get it. My girlfriend doesn't get it. My wife doesn't get it. There are so many factors here. And it's exactly why I went through all of the context that I did, because your discernment here is so, so, so important. And depending on the partnership is what determines how much energy, how much effort we should or do put into it. The truth is that some relationships, some connections deserve to be fought for. You know, in a world where, of course, I'm glad that we're starting to remind people that it's okay to walk away and you don't have to keep participating in toxic, draining relationships. Like, of course, I'm going to be one of your biggest advocates for that. I also am a person who is complex. And I am married to and am in partnership with somebody who is complex. And we have like the most incredible, strong, loving, trustworthy, respectful, fulfilling marriage and relationship. I can say that like bursting through my heart, confident. And of course, we've had our shit, man. We've had our shit. We've also not been our best all the time. We've also like been through some fucking shit. We've put each other through some shit. We've made some fucking choices. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean. And that's exactly why I'm bringing it up, because all of this deserves a place into what you're taking into consideration when you're thinking about or considering staying in or ending a significant relationship, partnership, or marriage when it comes to your spiritual beliefs and philosophical beliefs and their philosophical and spiritual beliefs. So this is why it's so crucial you get really clear with yourself about what respect is, about what love is, what trust is, what honesty is, what loyalty is, what marriage or partnership is. You need to define all these things. You need to know how your partner defines all of those things. And that's going to be one of your first indicators if we're aligned or not, because those are some of our most important things. And if we're already misaligned there, like, your answer is already starting to become clear. But if it's more of a situation where you are aligned on the most core fundamental things, but you speak very different languages, you approach things very differently, you respond to things very differently. Now we're getting into some very important nuance that, again, we have to use our discernment and our judgment. What is forgivable to one is unforgivable to the next. What someone can tolerate, someone else will absolutely not allow. What somebody wants and finds pleasurable and fulfilling, somebody else finds disgusting and off-putting. So there is no blanket answer here, but it is still one of the most common struggles and challenges brought across my plate as a mentor, a teacher, and a podcast host. I have a partner who doesn't get it, and I'm not quite sure how to go about it. So if you find yourself struggling with that, I would bookmark this episode. I would use it like a journal, like a guided journal exercise, and go through some of these different things I'm telling you at the beginning of the episode to keep in mind your personal boundary, and write down what they are for you. How do you define some of those things? What are your values? What are those ethics? What are your non-negotiables? What are your truths? What are you okay with and what are you not okay with? Where do you live? How do you ensure your safety and your security? What's the history like between you and this person? What's the track record? What are the patterns? There are so many of these things matter. And listening to this episode one time is not going to just solve all of this for you. This is more of my intention with this episode. It's probably why I kind of put it off for so long, even though it's something that's requested so often, is it's not something that is necessarily just talked about once and dealt with and handled once. It's this incredibly long, ongoing journey, and it has been going on for a very, very long time. And it requires your vigilance. It requires your awareness. It requires your mindfulness. You really got to be present with yourself and who you are and your philosophies and your beliefs and views. And then and again, I'm really right now specifically talking about our most important chosen relationships, like significant others, like spouses, like partners. You should be clear on those views, beliefs, values, philosophies, all of those things that I want you to be crystal on with yourself. You should be crystal on with that person. Do not let yourself go years and years and years without knowing those fundamental important things. And if you find that you have gone years and years without really knowing those things, without really learning them, and now maybe they're being revealed to you or whatever, you have to use your discernment here. You have to really get honest with yourself about the nature of your relationship with this person, what they do for you, your energy, and you have to take full and complete accountability for any decision that you make around that relationship, whether it's staying in it or not staying in it. Again, based on you being a spiritual, modern, mystic, witch, tarot reader, whatever it is, and the spouse, partner, significant other that doesn't get it, or you're questioning if they're being disrespectful, or you're not quite sure if you have some exploration to do around that. And this is an episode, like I said, that I would bookmark, and I would listen to like a guided journal exercise to really use some of these different concepts and ideas as journal prompts to expand on and get really, really clear with where you stand. Because there are going to be relationships out there that deserve to be fought for. And there are going to be people out there that deserve way better than the relationship that they're in, and they deserve to walk away. And you have to decide for yourself where you stand in all of that. And I really hope that at least giving you some examples here and letting you know how many people have approached me about this lets you know that you are so, so, so not alone. You're so incredibly not alone. if you're in a community like that witch school, and it doesn't have to be, it can be whether you're in a social media group or if you're in community with other witches where you can talk about that, or you have other witchy type of friends that you can talk to about that struggle that you're having in your partnership, that can also be a really beneficial and great place to start, is getting some support and some solidarity, potentially some further resources and tools from the other people around you that I promise you have their own, some version of that experience as well, to help you. And finally, probably as equally important of a common scenario where we encounter the stigma is social media and internet groups or just general strangers. And I'm not going to really elaborate on that because I was using that as probably my main example through the whole entire beginning of the episode when I gave you various examples of questions I've been asked, ways I've been approached, things I've heard other people, how they've been approached, and why you need to keep these various things in mind. You need to keep your safety in mind, your security in mind. You need to be strong on your own personal boundaries and be unapologetic about upholding them. And this goes for whether you should post your witchcraft practice on your social media or not, whether you should join social media or internet groups, like spiritual groups or tarot groups or astrology groups, what to do if you encounter a stranger that, you know, learns that you're an astrologer, you're wearing like a witchy shirt and says something about it. You need to be clear on your own personal boundaries and be unapologetic about them. And again, the greatest support and resource you're going to have in either dealing with those kinds of people or situations or coping from experiences with those kinds of people and situations, it's going to be the support resources and community that I'm really, really stressing it's important that you're part of for yourself. It's gonna Those are going to be the people that carry you through the weird things that you witness on social media, the comment threads, the questions you have about a weird witch talk video that you saw. You're going to take that to your community. You know what I mean? Take that to the people that get it and get it off your chest and share about it. This guy dumped his nightmare on me and started demanding that I interpreted it for him. Otherwise, I'm not a real psychic or whatever. Like, talk to your people, use your support tools for getting through that, and for coping with it in an effective, helpful way. So my final tips to carry forth, when encountering the naysayers of astrology and witchcraft. Use visualization magic or other tools like wands, athames, herb sachets, sigils, jewelry, accessories. Use your visualization or tools to create energetic orbs of protection around yourself or around yourself in different scenarios, like going to the grocery store, going to work, having to interact with your roommate, whatever that is. Orbs of protection. You can just visualize them. You can use tools or symbols or objects that represent them, but really, protection orbs are your best friend when dealing with the naysayers. Also, just as effective are affirmations. Create affirmations, create prayers for yourself that connect you to your spirit team, that connect you to your beliefs and your philosophies, and help you honor your boundaries and your unique beliefs. And honestly, trust in the true colors that people show you. We are not all going to align with each other, and that's okay. You can mute, unfollow, block, say goodbye to, let what's going to fade away, and that is okay, my friend. That is very Eight of Cups energy, and it's a natural process of life. But also know who your people are. Know the people that believe in you, the people that you hold space for, and those people that you reserve, like, that you give your energy to because you love them so much. reserve the energy you could be potentially wasting on some closed-minded prick in front of you. And remember to reserve your energy for your people, for your community, the people that need it. Reserve it for them. You don't have to always look at it as biting your tongue or being the bigger person. Sometimes you need to speak the truth, or you need to keep something private for your own safety, for your own security, for your own serenity, or so that you have the capacity and you have the energy to give it to the people that do fucking matter to you. Okay? Honestly, outside of those people, outside of your people, let the fucking universe handle the rest. Don't waste your time trying to convert anybody or make them believe or make them understand you. They either will understand you or they won't understand you, and let the universe have the rest. Honestly, the universe always has our back, and usually, like, we're way too small to see whatever consequences that person is like racking up for themselves in their behavior anyways. So very often it is not worth you trying to take their punishment or reckoning into your own hands and wasting your energy on them, because the universe is already in the middle of being ready to hand them the fuck out of some major ass life or soul lesson. And you can reserve your energy where it's best served for you and your own, and maintain that peace that you deserve, so you can radiate that out and around you to the people that deserve it from you. Okay. Now, of course, if you've been here before, you know that I host That Witch School. If you don't, if this is your first time here, I am a mentor and instructor, and I host an online monthly membership, That Witch School. This is just a very honest offering of a resource that I have available. This is not some like icky sales pitch or whatever. I mean, if you want to see it that way, I guess that's fine. But the truth is that the entire reason I even formed and founded That Witch School was because of the subject and nature of this episode. Because it is hard being magical in a very anti-magical world. And it can be even harder to build and find safe, inclusive community. And that is exactly what That Witch School is. It's a safe, inclusive, helpful online community of other witches, pagans, and mystics. And I invite you to subscribe. It is as little as $7 per month. There are literally years worth at this point of resources available right now, the moment that you subscribe. So not only do you get a ton of educational, supportive content and tools that you can use, you also instantly become part of and welcomed into this safe and welcoming, friendly community of other magic makers that get it and will stand with you in solidarity and support you through your unique witchcraft journey. Because again, anybody that ends up not fitting into any of that criteria naturally never comes into my community or quickly finds their way out of it. And I make quite sure of that, because I take it really seriously to host a kind and fun place where you can just come be the witch, mystic, astrologer, reader, medium, heal, whatever it is. Just be you and not get looked at like you have 7 heads when you want to talk about how the Queen of Swords came to you in a dream last night and you just want to talk to people about what she said to you. We have a really great place for that in That Witch School. So you can go to thatwitchschool.com today if you're interested in joining. And you can always send me a DM on Instagram or send me a message with any questions that you have. Thatwitchnextdoor.com/conjure-that-witch. You can always submit any kind of questions you have about That Witch School. I'm happy to answer anything about it. There's also no commitments, so you're always welcome to just try and join for a month and see if you like it and see if it's good fit for you. So yay. We're here for you if you need us, and anytime you want to join us, you are welcome. You are welcome with us, neighbor. Remember, I'm just right next door. If you have any questions about this episode, any feedback for me, I am sending you all of my love, neighbor. I hope that you are staying safe out there. You're letting yourself have some fun. And of course, stay magical, my friend. If you're learning a ton from that witch podcast episodes, dude, just think about how much you can grow your witchcraft practice and astrology studies inside that witch school. That Witch School is a monthly membership that arms you with resources, with guidance, community, and support for creating and living a modern magical life. You can go to thatwitchschool.com and browse our membership plans that start as low as just $7 per month. And unlike Patreon or like a Facebook group, our platform brings the best of the digital worlds together and gives you access to, number one, an absolute vault of lessons, workshops, guides, and cheat sheets in topics like astrology and shadow work, intuition strength training, dream work, tarot, daily magic, and way more. And number two, you instantly become part of a safe and welcoming community of other witches and energy workers who get what it's like living in a very anti-magical world and who are just trying to figure it out one day at a time and live their best witchy life too, just like you. So go to thatwitchschool.com today and find the enrollment plan that fits your budget and your unique needs. You'll instantly unlock your features, including a special member discount for one-on-one sessions with me, Danny, that witch next door. You can learn more and enroll at thatwitchschool.com today.